The Grey King by Susan Cooper. The Golden Harp. Cadfan's Way. "You see," said Aunt Jen, "I told you it would clear up." Will swallowed his last mouthful of bacon. "You wouldn't think it was the same country. Marvelous." Morning sunshine streamed like banners through the windows of the long farmhouse kitchen. It glinted on the blue slate slabs of the floor, on the willow-patterned china set out on the enormous black dresser, on the shelf of beaming Toby jugs above the stove. A rainbow danced over the low ceiling, cast up in a sunspell from the handle of a glass milk jug. "Warm, too," said Aunt Jen. "We are going to have an Indian summer for you, Will, and fatten you up a bit, too, my dear. Have some more bread." "It's lovely. I haven't eaten so much for months." Will watched small Aunt Jen with affection as she bustled about the kitchen. Strictly speaking, she was not his aunt at all, but a cousin of his mother's. The two had grown up as close friends, and still exchanged quantities of letters. But Aunt Jen had left Buckinghamshire long before. It was one of the more romantic legends of the family, the tale of how she had come to Wales for a holiday, fallen shatteringly in love with a young Welsh farmer, and never gone home again. She even sounded Welsh herself now, and looked it, with her small, cosily plump form, cozily plump form and bright dark eyes. "Where's Uncle David?" he said. "Out in the yard somewhere. This is a busy time of the year with the sheep. The hill farms send their yearlings down for the winter. He has to drive to town soon. He wondered if you would like to go. Go to the beach, you could, in this sunshine. Super!" "No swimming, mind," said Aunt Jen hastily. Will laughed. "I know, I'm fragile. I'll be careful. I'd love to go. I can send Mum a card saying I got here in one piece." A clatter and a shadow came in the doorway. It was Reese, disheveled, pulling off a sweater. "Morning, Will. Have you left us some breakfast?" "You're late," said Will cheekily. "Late, is it?" Reese glared at him in mock fury. "Just hear him. And us out since 6 with only an old cup of tea inside. Tomorrow morning, John, we will push this young monkey out of bed and take him with us." Behind him a deep voice chuckled. Will's attention was caught by a face he had not seen before. "Will, this is John Rowlands, the best man with sheep in Wales." "And with a harp, too," Aunt Jen said. It was a lean face, with cheekbones carved high in it, and many lines everywhere, creased upward, now round the eyes by smiling. Dark eyes, brown as coffee, thinning dark hair streaked with grey at the sides, and the well-shaped, mottled mouth of the Celt. For a moment, Will stared, fascinated. There was a certain curious, indefinable strength in this John Rowlands, even though he was not at all a big man. "Croeso, Will," said John Rowlands. "Welcome to Clune. I heard about you from your sister last spring." "Good heavens," said Will, in unthinking astonishment, and everyone laughed. "Nothing bad," Rowland said, smiling. "How is Mary?" "She's fine," Will said. "She said she had a marvellous time here last Easter. I was away too then, in Cornwall." He fell silent for a moment, his face suddenly abstracted and blank. John Rowlands looked at him swiftly, then sat down at the table where Reese was already poised over bacon and eggs. Will's uncle came in, carrying a batch of papers. "Quid paned? Ordi cared?" said Aunt Jen when she saw him. "Dark, yin's father," said David Evans, taking a cup of tea she held out to him. "And then I must be off to town." "You want to come, Will?" "Yes, please." "We may be a couple of hours." The sound of his words was very precise always. He was a small, neatly made man, sharp-featured, but with an exceptionally vague, reflective look sometimes in his dark eyes. "I have to go to the bank and see Lude Thomas, and there will be the new tyre for the Land Rover, the car that jumped up in the air and got itself a puncture." Reese, with his mouth full, made a strangled noise of protest. "Now, da," he said, swallowing. "I know how it sounded, but really I am not mad. There was nothing that could have made us swerve over the side like that and hit the rock, unless the steering rod is going." "There's nothing wrong with the steering of that car," David Evans said. "Well then, Reese was all elbows in indignation. "I tell you, she just lurched over for no reason at all. Ask Will." "It's true," Will said. "The car did just sort of jump sideways and hit that rock. I don't see what could have made it jump, unless it had run over a loose stone in the road, but that would have had to be a pretty big stone, and there was no sign of one anywhere." "Great allies, you two already, I can see," said his uncle. He drained his teacup, gazing at them over the top. Will was not sure whether or not he was laughing at them. Well, I'll have the steering checked anyway. John, Reese, now that extra fencing for the parade." They slid into Welsh, unthinking. It did not bother Will. He was occupied in trying to scorn away a small voice in the back of his mind. An irrational small voice with an irrational suggestion. If they want to know what made the car jump, this part of his mind was whispering at him, why don't they ask Caradog Pritchard? David Evans dropped Will at a small newsagent shop where he could buy postcards and chugged off to leave the Land Rover at a garage. Will bought a card showing a sinister dark lake surrounded by very Welsh-looking mountains and wrote on it, "I got here. Everyone sends their love," and sent it off to his mother from the post office, a solemn and unmistakable red brick building on the corner of Tuam High Street. Then he looked about him, wondering where to go next. Choosing at random, hoping to see the sea, he turned right at the narrow curving High Street. Before long, he found that there would be no sea this way, nor anything but shops, houses, a cinema with an imposing Victorian front grandly labelled Assembly Rooms, and the slate-roofed lich-gate of a church. Will liked investigating churches. Before his illness had overtaken him, he and two friends from school had been cycling all round the Thames village to make brass rubbings. He turned into the little churchyard to see if there might be any brasses here. The church porch was low-roofed, deep as a cave inside. The church was shadowy and cool, with sturdy white painted walls and massive white pillars. Nobody was there. Will found no brass rubbing, but only monuments to unpronounceable benefactors, like Gruffydd ap Ada of Ynysygmaelyn Hall. At the rear of the church, on his way out, he noticed a strange long grey stone set up on end, incised with marks too ancient for him to decipher. He stared at it for a long moment. It seemed like an omen of some kind, though of what significance he had not the least idea. And then, in the porch on his way out, he glanced idly up at the notice board with its scattering of parish news, and he saw the name, Church of St. Cadfan. The whirling came again in his ears like the wind, staggering. He collapsed onto the low bench in the porch. His mind spun. He was back suddenly in the roaring confusion of his illness, when he had known that something most precious had slipped or been taken away from his memory. Words flickered through his consciousness without order or meaning, and then a phrase surfaced like a leaping fish. "On Cadfan's way, where the kestrels call." His mind seized it greedily, reaching for more, but there was no more. The roaring died away. Will opened his eyes, breathing more steadily, the giddiness drawing gradually out of him. He said softly aloud, "On Cadfan's way, where the kestrels call. On Cadfan's way." Outside in the sunshine, the grey slate tombstones and green grass glimmered with jewel glints of light here and there from droplets of rain still clinging to the longest stems from the day before. Will thought, on the Day of the Dead, the Grey King, there must have been some sort of warning about the Grey King. And what is Cadfan's way? "Oh," he said aloud in a sudden fury, "if only I could remember." He jumped up and went back to the newsagent's shop. "Please," he said, "is there a guide to the church or the town?" "Nothing on Tywin," said the red-cheeked girl at the shop in her sibilant Welsh lit. "Too late in the season you are, but Mr. Owen has a leaflet for sale in the church, I think. And there is this, if you like, full of lovely walks." She showed him a guide to North Wales for 35p. "Well," said Will, counting out his money rather reluctantly, "I can always take it home afterwards, I suppose." "It would make a very nice present," said the girl earnestly. "Got some beautiful pictures it has, and just look at the cover." "Thank you," said Will. When he peered at the little book outside, it told him that the Saxon had settled Thun in 516 A.D. Round the church, built by St. Cadfan of Brittany and his holy well, and that the inscribed stone in the church was said to be the oldest piece of written Welsh in existence, and could be translated, "The body of